to day 3 and session 6 of uh, 6-day Auto Online FDP on quantum intelligence, integrating quantum technology with AI and ML. We are now having Professor Orpita Maitra with us. She will be delivering a lecture on quantum secure communication journey from BB84 to device independent QKD. Good evening, ma'am. Welcome to this session.
Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, audible. Meanwhile, let me give you a brief introduction. Professor Arpita Maitra. Professor Arpita Maitra is an associate professor at TCG Crest, Kolkata, specializing in quantum computation and communication. She did her graduation and post-graduation both in physics from University of Calcutta, followed by PhD in computer science and engineering from Jadavpur University. Her academic journey includes a 4-year postdoctoral fellowship at IIM Calcutta and IIT Kharagpur. She has also held a faculty position at C.R. Rao Advanced Institute of Mathematics, Statistics, and Computer Science, where she taught courses on security, cryptology, and quantum information. As an active researcher, Dr. Maitra has authored over 25 papers in the field of quantum secure communication. She has pursued international research collaborations with prestigious institutions, including the Institute of Quantum Computing, IQC, at the University of Waterloo, Canada, RWTH, Essen University, Germany, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and the German University of Technology, Oman. Her current research focuses on secure quantum communication, quantum cryptanalysis, and quantum key distribution protocols. I now request Professor Maitra to start this session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I must thank the organizer for giving me this opportunity. So I am now sharing my screen. Is my screen visible? Is it visible?
It's coming, ma'am.
No. No.
Okay.
No. No, madam.
Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Yes,
visible.
yes.
Okay. So today's topic is quantum secure communication journey from BB84 to device independent QKD. So first, we should discuss what is meant by communication. We know that communication means the transfer of bits 0 and 1 from sender to receiver. For this communication, we need lots of computation also. So in quantum domain also, same thing happens. So communication and computation work hand in hand. Classical paradigm is a subset of quantum paradigm. So whatever is happening in classical domain, that is possible in quantum domain, but the opposite is not always true. What is happening in quantum domain might not be true in classical domain, might not be happening in classical domain, and that is called quantum supremacy. So in quantum domain, we may get something better than classical domain, and using this quantum supremacy, we can do quantum communication, which is more advanced over classical communication. So, and lots of classical post processing are required even after the availability of quantum equipment. So, classical quantum communication doesn't mean everything is quantum. Quantum communication requires classical post processing also. So, quantum, you can say that quantum and classical paradigm work hand in hand. So we know that transmission, we know that communication means transmission of bits. Here in quantum domain, it is transmission of qubits, fundamental element in quantum computation. You may know already that what is qubit. We will recap that also in this talk. So it is more related to secure communication than usual communication. In classical domain, we need when we need to secure our classical communication, we have to depend on some hard mathematical problem. But in quantum domain, we don't require that. Quantum, the security comes from inherent property of quantum mechanics, and that is why it is called that it is more related to secure communication than usual communication. So quantum communication inherently means secure communication. MIT Technology review nicely explained that it is quoted that quantum communication takes advantage of the laws of quantum physics to protect data. As I told, these laws allow particles, typically photons of light, for transmitting data along optical cables to take on a state of superposition, which means they can represent multiple combination of 1 and 0 simultaneously. The particles are known as quantum bits or qubits. So you may already know that qubits in classical domain, we only have 2 bits, either 0 or 1. But in quantum domain, we can express qubit as a superposition of these 0 and 1. So, and that can be physically visualized by photon. So using photon, we can do quantum communication. The beauty of qubits from a cybersecurity perspective is that if a hacker tries to observe them in transit, their super fragile quantum state collapses to either 1 or 0. So this means that when any adversary tries to extract some information about the qubit, it will actually destroy the qubit. It will either collapses to 0 or 1. So original qubit will be destroyed. This means a hacker cannot tamper with the qubits without leaving behind a telltale sign of the activity. So from these two statements, it is clear that quantum communication has the speed of light, because we are using photons for communication, quantum communication, and another thing, this telltale sign of the activity. So when we try to extract some information about the transmission, we will leave behind the telltale sign of our activity. So these two is very important, and from these we get supremacy over classical domain. So speed and security, speed is coming from as we are using photon as a qubit, and security, that when we try to extract some information
No wife.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, Urpita Maitra, ma'am.
প্রথম থেকেই শুরু করতে হবে কি আমার? ওকে ওকে। Hello, sorry, I was mute. I didn't recognize that. Okay. So where we were? In summary, quantum communication is secure. I think I am audible now, right? Hello.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So in summary, what we have discussed till now, quantum communication is inherently secure. We don't need any hard problem to make it secure, like classical communication. And this security comes from the property of qubit that if we try to extract some information about the qubit, then we will destroy the qubit. So this is the inherent property comes from quantum mechanics, and this gives us the security. And another thing is the speed. In classical domain, we cannot transmit bits as fast as in speed of light, but in quantum domain, we can transmit qubit in the speed of light, because in quantum domain we are using photon for communication. We are the physical representation of qubit for communication is actually photon. So that is two things we are achieving in quantum communication. One is speed, another is security. So one example, quantum communication example, that is quantum key distribution. This is very famous primitives in quantum communication. So QKD replaces classical key exchange protocol. Classical key exchange protocol means there are two parties. One is sender, another is receiver. Sender is called Alice and a receiver is called Bob. So the main motivation, the main motto is to establish a secret key between these two ends, Alice and Bob. Same key, symmetric key between Alice and Bob. So there are many classical key exchange protocol, Diffie-Hellman, RSA, you can say RSA also one kind of key exchange protocol. So those key exchange protocol actually depends on the some hard problems. Example, factorization of a large number or discrete log problem, which are believed to be hard in classical domain. But in quantum domain, we don't require that. As I told, that inherent security comes from laws of physics. We will use that laws of physics, and we will get the security for QKD. We will discuss that. So QKD replaces classical key exchange protocol. Quantum key distribution has two distinct parts. One is quantum, another is classical. After quantum part, we have to do lots of classical processing. Quantum part consists of qubit exchange and measurement. So sender sends some qubit to receiver. Receiver receives those qubit, measure those qubits. After that, they will discuss which basis they are preparing the qubit, they are measuring the qubit, and in that way uh, uh, they will uh, uh, they will establish some raw key, and after that lots of error correction and hash function. That is actually classical thing, classical primitives, classical cryptographic primitives, they use that. So quantum key distribution has two distinct parts. One is quantum, another is classical. Classical part deals with error correction and hashing, as I told. Attacks are generally considered on quantum part only. However, classical part might not be quantum safe. For this lecture, for today's lecture, we won't discuss the attacks model, but that is out of scope here. But sometimes in future we can discuss the attacks model, how attacks can be mounted on these quantum key distribution protocols. Error correcting code and hash function used in a QKD protocol need to be studied very carefully because those are classical protocols and those might not be quantum safe. Now some basics, we can just quickly recap. The qubit, what is qubit? Quantum counterpart of classical bit 0 and 1. What is the uniqueness of qubit? In classical domain, we only have 0 and 1, but in quantum domain, qubit can be written as the superposition of these 0 and 1. Qubit can be written as alpha 0 plus beta 1, where alpha beta are complex number, and mod alpha square plus mod beta square equal to 1. Physical representation, as I told that in quantum communication, we physically realized that qubit as a photon. We consider its polarization. You know that photon has two polarization. Hello.
Excuse me, ma'am. Excuse me.
Yeah.
What is happening from our end? We are observing that the slides that you are presenting a little bit blurred.
Okay.
Sometimes it is becoming proper, and sometimes we are observing blurred. So what we can do as a solution? Can we from our end present
yes, that will be better. Yes.
Okay, and you please keep yes. So you please stop sharing so that we can share. And please keep instructing whenever you instruct us to go to the next slide, we will be doing from our end.
Yes, absolutely fine. Absolutely
Okay,
fine.
okay.
I am.
Okay, thank you. So we are presently.
Yeah.
আচ্ছা এটা তো আবার উনি পিডিএফ করে
PDF can also be presented. No issue at all. Please. Ma'am,
Yes.
which slide? Can you slide number where you should go?
Down.
Okay, please.
Yes, down. Yeah, preliminaries.
Keep it here.
Okay.
Yeah. So as we discussed, qubit can be physically visualized as photon or electrons. In communication domain, we will consider photon. When we talk about computation, we will consider electrons. And for photon, we will consider its polarization. Horizontal polarization can be visualized as 0, qubit 0, and vertical polarization can be visualized as 1. When we talk about electrons computation, then we will consider spin. And up spin, you know that the electron has two spins. So up spin means 0, down spin means 1. So next slide. So as I told that qubit can be the superposition of these 0 and 1. So alpha 0 plus beta 1 is the general form of a qubit, where alpha beta are complex number and mod alpha square plus mod beta square equal to 1. The unique property of a qubit is that when we try to measure the qubit, then what will happen? When we try to measure the qubit, we actually destroy the qubit. We will destroy the qubit. We will get either 0 or 1 as the output. And how many times we will get 0 and how many times we will get 1? The probability of getting 0 will be mod alpha square, and the probability of getting 1 will be mod beta square. One example, just down, not the next slide, down, yeah. One example is 1 plus I by 2 0 plus 1 by root 2 1. This is a qubit. You can see that mod, if you take mod alpha square here is 1 plus I by 2 mod square, which is equal to half, and beta is 1 by root 2. If you take mod square, that will also be half, and half plus half will be 1. So this is a valid qubit. So when you try to measure this qubit, you will get either 0 and 1. You will get 0 with probability half as mod alpha square equal to half, and you will get 1 with probability half as mod beta square equal to half. Next slide. Next slide. Now the information content in a qubit. So one may theoretically pack infinite amount of information in a single qubit. How? This alpha and beta are complex number, and you know that the complex number can be written as r into e to the power I theta. If you express this e to the power I theta, if you break this as a series, you will get infinite series. So inside alpha and inside beta, you can actually pack infinite number of bits. So that is why it is called that one may theoretically pack infinite number of information in a single qubit. But it is not very clear how we can extract the information. We can pack the information inside the qubit, but how we can extract that, that is not very clear. To get the information about alpha and beta, we need to measure the qubits infinite number of times. So we need infinite number of qubits to actually get the information about alpha and beta. So this is the limitation of quantum domain. So quantum domain offers us supremacy, but everything is not superior. There are some limitation, and this is one kind of limitation. Next slide. Next slide. Now 2 qubit states. So there are two types of 2 qubit states. One is the first example where we are considering two independent qubits. So one is alpha 1 0 plus beta 1 1, and another is alpha 2 0 plus beta 2 1. This is two independent qubit, and when these two qubits are reacting independently, then the tensor product of these two qubit will be this alpha 1 alpha 2 0 0, alpha 1 beta 2. This is like just multiplication. You can see that alpha 1 alpha 2 0 0 plus alpha 1 beta 2 0 1 plus beta 1 alpha 2 1 0 plus beta 1 beta 2 1 1. But not all the 2 qubit states can be represented in this form. So there are some 2 qubit states which can be expressed as follows: gamma 1 0 0 plus gamma 2 1 1. You can see that these cannot be decomposed in the tensor product of two independent qubits. These type of states which cannot be decomposed as the tensor product of two independent qubits are called entangled states. There are 4 entangled states which are very famous and which has huge impact in quantum redistribution. That is called Bell states. Only 4 states are there. Only 4 Bell states or EPR pair. So you can call them in many names. So those are 0 0 plus 1 1 by root 2, 0 0 minus 1 1 by root 2, 0 1 plus 1 0 by root 2, and 0 1 minus 1 0 plus root 2. Here I am giving one example, 0 0 plus 1 1 by root 2. Next slide. Now quantum gates. You are familiar with classical gates. So this is just the classic quantum counterpart of classical gate. But the unique property is that classical gate need not to be reversible. You can consider, you can think about XOR gate or XOR gate or OR gate. So there are 2 inputs and 1 output. You cannot make it reversible. You can make it reversible, but for that you need another extra input states also. But quantum gate inherently reversible. So the number of inputs will be equal to the number of output. So here there are some example: X gate, Z gate, and H gate. These are 1 qubit gate. That means the number of input is 1 and the number of output is 1. X gate, this behaves just like our classical NOT gate. So it converts 0 to 1 and 1 to 0. That is why when you apply this X gate on alpha 0 plus beta 1, you will get beta 0 plus alpha 1. Z gate is the unique gate. You cannot find any classical counterpart of this Z gate. This is called phase gate. What it does, it converts 1 as -1. So it changes the phase of 1. So when you apply these Z gates on alpha 0 plus beta 1, you will get alpha 0 minus beta 1. Now H gate, this is called Hadamard gate. It has a huge use case in quantum cryptography, quantum distribution. This creates the equal superposition of 0 and 1. So when you apply H on 0, it will give you 0 plus 1 by root 2. And when you apply this H on 1, it will give you 0 minus 1 by root 2. So when you apply this H on alpha 0 plus beta 1, you will get alpha 0 plus 1 by root 2 and plus beta 0 minus 1 by root 2. Next, all these gates can be represented by a matrix. So the matrix form 2 to the power n plus 2 to the power n matrix, unitary matrix. Here n is the number of inputs. So number of inputs, or you can say number of outputs, because number of inputs will be equal to number of outputs. So for X gate, the matrix will be 2 cross 2. For Z gate, matrix will be 2 cross 2. For H gate, matrix will be 2 cross 2, because here the number of input is 1. So these gates can be represented by 2 to the power 1 plus 2 to the power 2 cross 2 unitary matrices. The matrix form of X gate is 0, 1, 1, 0. Z gate is 1, 0, 0, minus 1. And H gate is 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, minus 1 by root 2. Next slide. Now another gate, there are many gates, there are many quantum gates. I am not mentioning all. I am just giving the example of very important gates. Another gate is called CNOT gate. This is actually 2 input, 2 output quantum gates, and that is why this can be represented by 4 cross 4 matrix, 2 to the 2 square into 2 square unitary matrices. What it does, it converts. So first here it is taking 2 inputs. First input is called control and second input is called target. So control, if the control is 0, then target remains as it is. If control is 1, then target flips. So that is why 0, 0, here first bit is 0, second bit is 0. So control bit is 0, target bit is 0. So output will be 0, 0. When the input will be 0, 1, so control is 0, target is 1, output will be 0, 1, because control is 0. Now when the input is 1, 0, that means control is 1 and target is 0, then it flips the target. So you will get 1, 1 as output. And when the input is 1, 1, here the control is 1 and target is 1. So that 1 will be flipped and you will get 1, 0. The matrix representation of this CNOT gate is as follows: 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. Next slide. So though this is not very relevant with today's talk, but I am giving one example how we can make a circuit with these gates. So here we are taking Hadamard gate and CNOT gate. This is the H is Hadamard gate, and this is the next gate is the symbol of CNOT gate. Using this circuit, we can prepare Bell states. If x equals to 0 and y equals to 0, then you will get down, please down, slide down, slightly down. If x equals to 0 and no, down, keep it. So if x equals to 0 and y equals to 0, you will get 0, 0 plus 1, 1 by root 2. If x equals to 0 and y equal to 1, then you will get 0, 0, 0, 1 plus 1, 0 by root 2. If x equals to 1, z equal to 0, you will get 0, 0 minus 1, 1 by root 2. If both are 1, 1, you will get 0, 1 minus 1, 0 by root 2. How it is happening? If we have time, we will get back to this slide and we will explain. But this is one example how we can use the gates to make the circuit. This is the circuit for entanglement, creating entangled states, the Bell states. Now, next slide. Now, the most important thing, that is the no cloning theorem. I told that in classical domain, to achieve security, we need to consider some hard mathematical problem. But in quantum domain, security comes from the fundamental laws of physics. One law is that in quantum domain, you cannot copy a qubit. So if you don't know a qubit, that means if you don't know the value of alpha and beta, you cannot copy this qubit. That means if you are given a qubit psi and a blank copy 0, that is the white page, then if you don't know the value of alpha and beta, you cannot make a machine which can clone this psi on that 0. So this is called no cloning theorem. Next slide. So here, upper figures are the classical upper slide. So earlier slide, yeah, yes, down, yeah. So upper two pictures are the classical domain. You can clone the kids, you can clone that man. But if you try this cloning in quantum domain, then you may reach in this type of thing. So next slide. Next slide, please. Next. So no cloning, this first stated by Wouters and Jurek in 1982. Also Dicke, the same year, Dicke also showed that in quantum domain cloning is not possible. It has huge implications in quantum computing, quantum information, and quantum cryptography. Next slide. Next slide, please. So this is the proof. We can skip that. If we have time, then we will get back to here. So you can skip this proof. This is the proof of no cloning theorem. So please skip these slides. This also, this is the proof. Please skip this also. Skip this. Skip it. Yes, skip it. This is also skip, please. Okay. Now keep this. Yeah. So here, using the CNOT gate, you can easily understand what is happening, what is meant by no cloning theorem. So CNOT gate, actually the cloning machine in 0-1 basis. So if you are given a 0 and your target will always be 0, this is the white paper. So if you use CNOT, you will get 0, 0. So 2 copies of 0. If this mu is 1 and your target is white paper, that is 0, if you use CNOT, then you will get 1, 1. So 2 copies of 1, 2 copies of, so if the qubits are, if mu is either 0 or 1, using CNOT, you can clone them. But if mu is some other qubit, say alpha 0 plus beta 1, then you can see that you this CNOT, you cannot get the 2 copies of that alpha 0 plus beta 1. So this is the, so there won't be any universal machine which can clone any arbitrary qubit in quantum domain. So CNOT can clone the qubits in 0-1 basis, but it cannot clone any arbitrary qubit. So you won't find any arbitrary machine which can clone all possible qubits. So that is the main thing which is stated by no cloning theorem. Now next. So now indistinguishability of non-orthogonal states. So what is meant by that? If you are given 0 and 1, if you take the dot product of this 0 and 1, you will see that you will get 0. So or if you consider this qubit 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, 1 by root 2 0 minus 1, and if you take the dot product of these two qubits, you will get 0. So these states 0 and 1 are orthogonal states. 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, 1 by root 2 0 minus 1 are orthogonal states. But if you take 0 and 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, and if you take the dot product between these two states, you will find that you won't get 0. So these two states, 0 and 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, or 0 and 1 by root 2 0 minus 1, those are not orthogonal states. Those are called non-orthogonal states. And it can be shown that you cannot distinguish these two states. That is, if you are given 0 and 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, and you are asked to distinguish, you are asked to say what is 0 and what is 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, you cannot say that with probability 1. So that is called indistinguishability of non-orthogonal states. So we cannot distinguish non-orthogonal states with probability 1. Next slide. This. So if you are given 0 and 0 plus 1 by root 2, two non-orthogonal states, then it is not possible to exactly identify each one. What is 0 and what is 0 plus 1 by root 2? You cannot say with probability 1. So this is the indistinguishability of non-orthogonal states. And these two things, no cloning theorem and non-orthogonal indistinguishability of non-orthogonal states, give us the security of quantum free distribution. We will see that. Next slide. So now we will discuss BB84, and we will see how this no cloning theorem and indistinguishability of non-orthogonal states give the security of BB84. We don't require any hard mathematical problem here. Next. So BB84 history initiated by Charles Bennett and Gilles Brachat in 1979. The paper was not getting accepted initially. So they wrote the paper in 1979, and the paper was published in 1984 in an Indian conference. This is the conference, International Conference on Computer Systems and Signal Processing, Bangalore. And now today the citation, number of citation according to Google Scholar of this paper is 14,220. So from this citation, it is evident how important this paper is. This is the first scheme for quantum free distribution, the first protocol in the area of quantum cryptography. From this, BB84 quantum cryptography starts. The basics of this protocol comes from the seminal concept by Wisner. This is also unpublished paper, but the seminal concept comes from this paper, the paper of Wisner. Next. Next. Now, what is the idea of BB84? As I told you that QKD, the main motto of QKD is to establish a symmetric key between two parties. One is called Alice, sender, and another is called Bob, receiver. So the main motto is to transmit 0 and 1 securely, classical 0 and classical 1 securely, so that at the end of the protocol, we will reach on a symmetric key in both sides, at Alice's side and at Bob's side. So how we will do that? The encoding is as follows. If you want to encode classical bit 0, then you have to choose two non-orthogonal states. So you have to encode this classical bit 0 either by qubit 0 or by qubit 1 by root 2 0 plus 1. Why this is? Because we already learned that we cannot distinguish non-orthogonal states with probability 1. So if someone intercept your channel where you are sending classical bit 0, then if he or she can take this qubit 0 or 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, but she or he cannot understand when 0 is going, when 1 by root 2 0 plus 1 is going, because he or she cannot distinguish which is 0 or which is 1 by root 2 0 plus 1 with probability 1. So this is giving you the security and that is why you have to encode classical bit 0 with either 0 or 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, two non-orthogonal states. But if you encode classical bit 0 only by 0, qubit 0, then anyone can easily understand, because there is no non-orthogonal states, so anyone can distinguish whether this is 0 and get all the information. That is why the main thing in QKD is that when you encode your classical bit, you have to choose two non-orthogonal states randomly. Same for 1. If you want to encode 1, then you have to choose either 1 or 1 by root 2 0 minus 1. So this 1 will be encoded either by 1 qubit 1 or 1 by root 2 0 minus 1, two non-orthogonal states. So no one can distinguish 1 and 1 by root 2 0 minus 1 with probability 1. We can choose other non-orthogonal states also. One example, it's 1 by root 2 0 plus I1, 1 by root 2 0 minus I1. So instead of 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, if you want to encode 0, you can choose 0 and 1 by root 2 0 plus I1. If you want to encode 1, you can choose 1 and 1 by root 2 0 minus 1. So but the main thing is that in nutshell, you have to take two non-orthogonal states to encode classical bit 0 and classical bit 1. After encoding, the qubit will be sent from Alice to Bob. After getting the qubit by Bob, Bob will measure those qubits either in 0 1 basis or in 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, 1 by root 2 0 minus 1 basis. That after all this exchange, the quantum part ends. So I already told that QKD consists of two parts. One is quantum part, where we exchange all the qubits and we do all the measurements. And after that, after this quantum part, the classic part starts. Now after the measurement, Bob will announces which basis he is choosing for which instance. For example, for first instance, say Alice encodes her bit by 0 1 basis, and Bob measures in this instance with 1 by root 2 0 plus 1 and 1 by root 2 0 minus 1 basis. So Alice will tell, for the first instance I chose 0 1 basis, and Bob will say that okay, you chose 0 1 basis, but I chose 1 by root 2 0 plus 1, 1 by root 2 0 minus 1 basis. So in that way, they will discuss which instance, whether they are choose which basis they are choosing. And with a very high probability, half of the cases they are basis match. That means the basis Alice used to encode her qubit, her classical bits, and Bob used the basis for measurement. Those bases match. If those bases match, they will keep those information, and if the bases mismatch, they will discard those. And from those basis match bits, they will establish the raw key. So next slide, down, slightly down. So Bob will also measure in random basis. Basis will match in a proportion of cases, and from that key will be prepared. So this is the algorithm. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the algorithm. Alice chooses 4 plus delta n many random data bits referred as binary string A. Alice further chooses a random bit string B of 4 plus delta n many bits. For I equal to 0 plus 0 to 4 plus delta n minus 1. If Ai equal to 0, Bi equal to 0, Alice will send 0, qubit 0. If Ai equal to 1, Bi equal to 0, Alice will send 1. If Ai equal to 0, Bi equal to 1, Alice will send 1 by root 2 0 plus 1. If Ai equal to 1, Bi equal to 1, Alice will send 1 by root 2 0 minus 1. From this, you can see that when Ai equal to 0, then the qubit will either be 0 or 1 by root 2 0 plus 1. When Ai equal to 1, then qubit will be either be 1 or 1 by root 2 0 minus 1. So in that way, Alice sends the qubit, Alice encodes the classical bits into qubits and sends all those qubits to Bob. Alice sent the resulting state to Bob. After receiving 4 plus delta n many qubits, Bob announces the fact and measures his qubit either in 0-1 basis or in this 1 by root to 0 plus 1, 1 by root to 0 minus 1 basis at random. And after that, they will discuss the basis. They will keep the basis where their bases match, and they will discard the basis where their bases mismatch. Next slide. So this is the thing. Bob then discard the bits where the measured the qubits in a different basis. Then Alice prepared, and Alice also does the same thing. With high probability, there are at least 2n bits left, not discarded. And if this does not happen, then the protocol is aborted. They work with 2n many bits. A subset of n bits are selected by Alice that will serve as checks on the interface of. So after this, they have to check whether Eve is sitting in the transmission line. So for that, from these 2n bits where the bases match, Alice will randomly chooses n number of bits and publicly discuss the value of the bits. So earlier, Alice and Bob didn't discuss the value of the bits. They only discussed the bases. But now Alice will randomly choose n number of bits and discuss the value of the bits with Bob. And if there is no if, then Alice's bit should be equal to the bit value of Bob. But if those mismatch, that means if is there, and that is why some error is introduced in the channel, and that is why Bob is getting some wrong bit value. So in that way, they will check the error in the channel. Both Alice and Bob announce and compare the values of the n many check bits. If the number of disagreement is more than an accepted limit, then the protocol will be aborted. They will before the protocol starts, they will fix some threshold value. If this error rate is more than that threshold value, they will abort the protocol. Otherwise, they will continue the protocol. So information reconciliation and privacy amplification are performed by Alice and Bob. I already told that after quantum part, we have to use error correcting code and hash function. So that is called information reconciliation and privacy amplification. In privacy amplification, we will use a hash function, and information reconciliation, that is actually error correction. So if the protocol doesn't abort, then they have to apply error correction for eliminating those errors, and they have to use hash function to extract the information, to remove the information which is extracted by the adversary Eve. Next slide. So this is the example A. Suppose this is the B string 011011001. B string is 00101110. So according to the protocol, when AI BI equal to 0, Alice will send 0. It is shown in the polarization state. So this is the 0 state. If it is 10, then that will be horizontal polarization. So this is the polarization. Alice sends these qubits. Bob randomly chooses some bases, and you can see that first position, third position, then sixth position and eighth position, their bases match, and so they will keep these instances and discard all other instances, and from these instances their key will be generated. So their key will be 0, 1, the value of A, 0, 1, 0 and 1. So this is the raw key, and after that they will check. Here we are not considering the interference of Eve. So if there is Eve, you will see that this shouldn't be equal at Alice's side and at Bob's side. So we have to apply error correction, and after that privacy amplification, and after privacy amplification we will get the secret key. So next slide. So the protocol BB80 protocol is provably secure. There is a security proof that this protocol is unconditionally secure, though theoretically when we practically try to implement that protocol, because of the inherent fault inside the device, if adversary will extract some information, and that cannot be removed using hash function or any other function. So that is the but that is the practical fault, but theoretically it is provably secure. Based on no cloning theorem, the proof comes from the quantum property that information gain is only possible at the expense of disturbing the signal. So when, as we already know that if the adversary try to measure the qubit, he or she will destroy the qubit and destroy or modify the qubit. So by modifying the qubit, he or she inherently introduce some noise in the channel, and that noise will be reflected when Alice and Bob check the error in the channel. So in that way, the proof comes from the quantum property that information gain is only possible at the expense of disturbing the signal. And disturbing the signal means Alice and Bob will be aware that Eve is there. So without hiding himself or herself, adversary cannot extract any information from the channel. So this is the inherent property of quantum mechanics, and this gives us the security, unconditional security of the protocol. If the two states we are trying to distinguish are not orthogonal, it is not possible to distinguish them with certainty. We already discussed that. The protocol is a method of securely communicating a private key from Alice to Bob. Next. Now another protocol that is called Eckart protocol. We discussed about entangled state. In Eckart protocol, BB84 protocol is called preparation and measure protocol. Alice is encoding Alice is encoding her classical bits by preparing some qubits, either 0 or 1 by root 2 0 plus 1 or 1 or 1 by root 2 0 minus 1. And those qubits are sent to Bob, and Bob is continuously measuring the qubits. That is why BB84 protocol is called preparation and measure kind of protocol. But Eckart protocol, here they are using Alice and Bob are using some entangled states. So this is the protocol. Alice and Bob share 4 plus delta L many EPR pair, the Bell states, say 1 by root 2 0 0 plus 1 1. Alice chooses a random binary string B of 4 plus delta n many bits. The algorithm is as follows. For I equal to 0 to 4 plus delta n minus 1, if Bi equal to 0, Alice measures her part in 0 1 basis. So they are sharing entangled states. That means one part, the first part of this entangled state 1 by root 2 0 0 plus 1 1, the first part is with Alice and the second part is with Bob. You can view this as a string with two points. So one point is with Alice and one point is with Bob. So if Bi equal to 0, Alice measures her her point in 0 1 basis, and if Bi equal to 1, then Alice measures her part in plus minus basis. In that way, there is a unique property of entanglement that if Alice is measuring, if Alice and Bob share some entangled states and one party is measuring in some basis, then automatically the entanglement breaks, and the other party will the entanglement breaks, and that qubit is collapses to the other party in that basis. So if Alice measures in 0 1 basis, then and if Alice gets 0, then Bob also will get 0, and if Alice gets 1, then Bob also will get 1. Similar kind of thing will happen for plus minus basis. If Alice gets plus, then Bob also will get plus. If Alice gets minus, then Bob also will get minus. So if they use the same basis, due to this entanglement, they should get the same bit value. But if the basis mismatch, if Alice measures in 0, 1 basis and Bob measures in plus minus basis, then it can be shown that Alice will get some bit, but Bob will get Bob may get another bit. So error will be introduced in that case. So in that way, so Bob chooses a random binary string B dash of 4 plus delta in many bits, and the measure protocol is same for I equal to 0 to 4 plus delta n minus 1. If bi dash equal to 0, Bob measures his part in 0, 1 basis, and if bi dash equal to 1, Bob measures his part in plus minus basis. As I told that if the bases match, that means if bi equal to bi dash, then the information, the bit value or the information extracted by Alice must be equal to the information extracted by Bob. But if bi not equal to bi dash, then the error will introduced in the channel. So next slide. So after measurement, they will publicly announce B and B dash. Alice and Bob will keep the instances where bi XOR bi dash equal to 0, that means bi equal to bi dash. So their bases match, and throw away the instances where bi XOR bi dash equal to 1, that means bi not equal to bi dash. They throw away those instances, because in that cases the error will be introduced in the channel. So they have to discard that, otherwise they will mix this error with the error caused by the adversary. So that is why they have to throw away where bi not equal to bi dash. Rocky will be generated from the cases where bi equal to bi dash. Alice and Bob perform error checking followed by error correction, same as BB84, because this is the classical part. So in any QKD protocol, whether this is BB84 or Eckart protocol or semi-quantum protocol or MDI protocol, whatever it is, quantum part differs, but the classical part remains same. So after quantum parts, there should be error checking, error correction, and privacy amplification, and after that we are getting the secret key. So this is the Eckart protocol where we are using entangled state. Eckart, it can be shown that Eckart protocol, from Eckart protocol we can deduce BB84 protocol. So it is shown that it is told that Eckart protocol is the entanglement version of BB84 protocol. So so BB84 protocol is the preparation and measure protocol, and Eckart protocol is entanglement based protocol. Next slide. Now another quantum redistribution protocol, that is called semi-quantum redistribution protocol. So what is semi-quantum redistribution protocol? In semi-quantum redistribution protocol, Alice behaves like BB84 Alice. So Alice will prepare encodes her classical bit 0 either by 0 or 1 by root 2 0 plus 1. Her classical bit 1 either by 1 q bit 1 or 1 by root 2 0 minus 1. So Alice will be same as BB84 Alice, but there are certain difference between BB84 Bob and semi-quantum Bob. In BB84 Bob, Bob will choose either 0, 1 basis or plus minus basis for measurement, but in semi-quantum Bob, Bob only will choose 0, 1 basis. No plus minus basis will be there. So that, and this 0, 1 basis has 1-to-1 correspondence with classical 0 and 1. So that is why in this semi-quantum redistribution, Bob will be denoted by classical Bob, and as Alice is same as BB84 Alice, Alice will be denoted by quantum Alice. So that is why this is called semi-quantum. Alice is quantum, but Bob is classical. So that is why this is called semi-quantum. This protocol is introduced by Boyer et al. In 2007. Next slide. Next. So in semi-quantum redistribution, it has been considered that Bob has limited capability and he can do the following. Whenever a qubit passes through Bob, he can let it go undisturbed, or in other words, he can reflect the qubit to Alice. So this is semi-quantum key distribution. Another difference between semi-quantum key distribution and BB84 is that this is two-way protocol. BB84 is one-way protocol. So Alice is sending qubits from sending qubit to Bob. This is BB84 protocol. But here in semi-quantum, Bob also either reflect the qubit back to Alice, or he will measure the qubit and generate the same qubit at his place and then sends it back to Alice. So this is a two-way protocol. First, Alice will send the qubits to Bob. Bob will choose whether he will reflect back the qubit to Alice, or he will measure and create the same qubit and send those to Bob. Send those to Alice. So this is actually two-way protocol. So this is another difference between semi-quantum key distribution and BB84 protocol. But it is also preparation and measure protocol. Here, Alice and Bob both are preparing the qubits and measuring the qubits. So this is also PM, preparation and measure QKD. And but there are certain difference between BB84 and semi-quantum. Here Bob has limited capability. Bob cannot measure the qubits in plus minus basis. Bob only can measure the qubits in 0-1 basis, and this is a two-way protocol. I am not, so next slide. So as Bob is measuring and generating the qubit only in Z basis, that is 0-1 basis, Bob is called classical, as I told. Alice is not classical because Alice is same as BB84 Alice. So as she needs to deal with both the bases, computational as well as Hadamard basis, plus minus basis is called Hadamard basis, because if you apply Hadamard gate on 0, then you will get that 1 by plus state. And if you apply Hadamard on 1, then you will get minus state. So that is why plus minus basis is called Hadamard basis. Thus the protocol is called semi-quantum. So Alice is quantum, Bob is classical. That is why this is called semi-quantum. Next slide. This is the protocol. So I am skipping this protocol. Only thing is that this is the difference we already discussed, and it can be shown that this semi-quantum protocol is less secure than BB84 protocol. So this is because of the limited capability of Bob, and because of this is the two-way protocol. So what if can do? If can mount any attack twice. When it is when the qubit is going from Alice to Bob, and when it is coming back from Bob to Alice. So that is why for these two reasons, one is the less capability of Bob, limited capability of Bob for measuring the qubits, and another, this is the two-way protocol, and because of that, it can be shown that this is less secure than BB84. Next slide. So this is the protocol, just keep it. Next. So this is the through this table, you can see how the bits are generated. So another disadvantage is that in BB84 table, you can see that we are considering 8 bits, and as a raw key we are getting 4 bits. But here again we are considering 8 bits, but as a raw key we are getting only 2 bits. So we are losing more bits than BB84 protocol. So this is another disadvantage of semi-quantum key distribution. So one disadvantage is this is less secure. Second disadvantage is we are wasting more bits in semi-quantum key distribution. Next slide. Now, measurement device independent QKD. What is measurement device independent QKD? This is a very famous QKD protocol. Huge attention is given on that protocol. In the measurement device independent QKD, there will be another party which is called Charles, and who are assumed to be untrusted. So Charles can behave as an adversary, and all the measurement kind of thing will be given to him. So next slide. Next slide. Yeah. So this is proposed by Loh, Kurti and Kai in 2012. This provides security against detector side channel attacks. So measurement, why detector side channel attacks? So detector detects, the detector is used to measure the qubits, and all the detectors are given to that third party, untrusted third party Charles, who may behave as an adversary. So that is why we are assuming that Charles can do whatever he wants to do with the detectors, but still this protocol, it can be shown that this protocol is unconditionally secure, and that is why it is it is secure against detector side channel attacks. Any attacks which can mount on the detectors can be bypassed, because we are giving all the detectors to the adversary Charles. And this is another advantage, that we don't need to trust the detectors. We don't need to trust the measurement devices. In case of BB84 or Eckert or semi-quantum, we have to trust the source, Alice, as well as Bob, the measurement end. But here, in case of MDI QKD, we are giving the measurement devices to the adversary. So we need not to trust the measurement devices, and that is why this is called measurement device independent QKD. So please down. So here Alice and Bob, here two party, Alice and Bob. Alice will send the qubits to Charles. Alice will encode the qubits similar to BB84. Bob also will follow same encoding strategy as BB84. That is, if it is classical 0, then Alice or Bob will encode this classical 0 either by qubit 0 or 1 by root 2 0 plus 1. If it is classical 1, then Alice and Bob encode this classical 1 either by 1 or 1 by root 2 0 minus 1, and then both the parties send the qubits to Charles. Charles will, after getting these qubits, one from Alice and one from Bob, Charles will measure those two qubits in Bell basis, and based on the measurement, Alice and Bob will establish the raw key. I am not going into the detail of the protocol, but the main interesting thing is that here all the measurement devices are given to an untrusted third party, to the adversary. Still, this is a secure, unconditionally secure quantum key distribution protocol. So next slide. So since the measurement devices detectors are operated by the untrusted third party UTP, no trust is required at the measurement end, unlike BB84, semi-quantum or Eckert protocol. The protocol can be proven to provide unconditional security, as I discussed. Hence, the scheme is referred as measurement device independent QKD. So next slide. So that is why this is very much important. So we can remove the trust from the measurement device. Now the present trend is that whether we can design device independent QKD. Device independent means we need not to trust the source, that means Alice, neither Bob, that means the measurement end. So whether we can remove the trust from source and from measurement device. From measurement device, we already have measurement device independent QKD, but still we have to trust sources. We have to trust Alice and Bob. So the present research trend is that whether we can design some protocol where we need not to trust anyone. So quantum key distribution usually based on three main assumptions. One, validity of quantum mechanics. Two, if the quantum mechanics is not valid, then you cannot rely on low-coloring theorem. You cannot rely on indistinguishability of non-orthogonal states, and there is no meaning of this security. So that is why we assume that quantum mechanics is valid. Quantum mechanics is true. Assumption of no information leakage from the honest parties labs, because if some assumption, if Alice has some tie with some adversary, Bob has tie with some adversary, if there is some leakage from their laboratory, then there won't be any unconditional security kind of thing. So that is why we have to assume that there is no information leakage from the honest parties labs. And this is actually quite impossible, because we are buying the source and the measurement device from third party vendor, and it may happen that they may introduce some trapdoor inside the devices. So if we can guarantee that there is no leakage from our laboratory, but it may happen that through that trapdoor, that information is leaked to the third party vendor. So, and fact that the honest parties have a sufficiently good knowledge of their devices. So, removing these two assumptions, that we need not to trust neither on source nor the measurement devices, is the motivation of device independent QKD. All the three assumptions are necessary for the security of standard protocols such as BB84 and its variants. For example, Alice and Bob may unknowingly use multi-photon source in BB84. What is multi-photon source? Multi-photon source means in one instance that source is emits same kind of photons, same kind of photons, 2 photons, 3 photons, 4 photons. And in that case, what adversary will do, adversary will retain all the photons except a single photon. Adversary will allow a single photon which will be transmit from Alice to Bob, and keep all those photons. And though all the photons are the copy of that single photon, so adversary will get the all information about the photon. This doesn't violate no cloning theorem, because of the source fault. Source is itself emitting copies of the photons. Adversary will get all the information about the photon. So if the source is multi-photon, then there won't be any unconditional security. All the information will go to adversary. So that is called, that kind of attack is called photon number splitting attack. And using photon number splitting attack, adversary can achieve all the information, and that can only happen if the source is multi-photon source. Then so for getting unconditional security, we must be sure that we are using single photon source. So all those kind of things, so all those assumptions we need to remove. Without removing these assumptions, we cannot get the full security. So removing the third assumption is the motto of device independent quantum key distribution. Next slide. So a QKD protocol whose security can be proven without making any assumption on the devices is called device independent QKD. We need not to trust any devices, neither source nor measurement device. These protocols that are named device independent offer a stronger form of security, since they require the minimal assumption, and that can be checked by some game that is called CHHS game, or Bain inequality. Through that is a statistical thing. I am not going into the detail. By using that, exploiting that game, we can certify whether these devices are secure or not. I am not going into the detail in this direction. Some important papers are Bhajik Vidirani 2015, Vidik 2017, Kaur, Wild and Winter 2020. So these are some important paper in this direction. Next slide. Now some questions on QKD. If a QKD framework is purchased from external agency, how to evaluate the security? Because as I told that we have to purchase source or the measurement device from some third party vendor, and it is you cannot guarantee that third party vendor don't have any tie with your adversary. So if they put any trapdoor inside your source or your device, though you are uh, you are doing the QKD, which is theoretically unconditionally secure, the information is automatically leaked to your adversary. So how we can evaluate, evaluate whether these devices are safe for secure communication. Can we have interface to input qubits of our choice to the equipment? So as far as I know, all the QKD boxes, available QKD boxes, they will come as a finished product. You cannot input your own qubits inside that box. So that is another disadvantage, because you don't know what is happening inside the devices. Will it be enough to try out something like CHHS game for DI? We already discussed that to test DI, we have to rely on CHHS game. But will it be enough? We have to. So the research is going in this direction. So will it be enough to try out something like CHHS game for DI testing? Next slide. Now some commercially available QKD system. This is some partial list. There are many companies who are selling QKD boxes, but it is not clear how we can guarantee the security from those devices, because we cannot input our own qubit inside the devices. We cannot open the devices. This will come as a finished product. So it is a long-standing questions in this domain, that how we can evaluate this black box kind of thing. So one company is ID Quantiq, very famous company in Switzerland. They are selling these QKD boxes, QRNG, quantum random number generators, all those things. Then another company is MagicQ. They are also selling, this is USA based company. They are also selling QKD boxes, but no fully practical DI QKD devices has been realized till date, because that CHHS testing is very difficult. This is very challenging in practice, and that is why no fully practical DI QKD device has been realized yet. Next slide. So now summary, we have to conclude our talk. Quantum communication has advanced significantly in recent years. It has moved beyond laboratory demonstration to reach the commercial market, because commercial devices are already available in the market. But note that all those QKD boxes are not DI QKD. Existing QKD systems in practice are mainly based on BB84 variants, MDI QKD or CV. CV QKD means continuous variable QKD. We didn't discuss this QKD in this talk, but sometimes in future we can discuss that. These protocols are experimentally more feasible. Why this BB84, MDI and CV? And note that all those protocols, those are actually preparation and measure protocol. That Eckart protocol also cannot be realized in practice, because we need to implement Eckart protocol, we need entanglement, and creating entanglement and sustainability of entanglement, that is actually very challenging, and that is why entanglement based commercial devices are not reported yet. These protocols are experimentally more feasible, but they are not yet device independent. Next slide. Next slide. So although proof of principle demonstrations of Bell inequality, that CHHS game, which certify the device independence of a QKD system, have been achieved, they remain far from realizing a practical device independent QKD system. Also here also one of the causes is that for Bell inequality testing or CHHS testing, we require entanglement, and entanglement, creating entanglement, maintaining entanglement, that is very, very challenging. Recent research efforts are directed towards semi-DI protocols, and that is why we are focusing on semi-DI protocols like one-sided DI QKD. It can be shown that Eckart protocol actually one-sided DI QKD. Prepare and measure DI style protocol, source independent QKD, with dimension witness. So all those are semi-DI protocols. So either we trust sources or we trust measurement devices. But both, when we remove the trust from both source and measurement device, that will be DI protocol. But no DI protocol, as the Bell inequality testing is challenging, no DI protocol is available in commercial market to enhance practical applicability. So we should conclude our talk here. Thank you very much for listening for this long time. So
Thank
now
you
we
so
will
much,
have,
ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for delivering such a wonderful presentation. Now it's to the audience. Do you have any question to ask? Hello, audience. Is there any question from the audience side? I think there is no such question. So thank you so much.
thank
So
you very much.
with this, we are ending today's session. Thank you, audience. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.